The gap. In December 2020, we celebrated 27 years of marriage. 6 years ago, I had an affair that ended terribly. After learning, the husband attended counseling for just 5 months, and their marriage was under stress, strained, and completely changed. 3 years into our marriage, to be exact, he had a one-night fling. In an 8-page handwritten letter to me, he confessed that 22 years later, he had also admitted to having 2 one-night stands while traveling abroad for business. He frequently accompanied a girl he worked with, who was 22 years younger than him, to lunch while he was receiving counseling. I looked over our bank statements and saw this, and confided in her all of our marital problems. I contacted her and challenged him, requesting that she not accept any more invitations and to avoid getting involved in our marriage. They are still in contact 6 years later. They're only pals, he assured our children, and she is safe. A few months later, as he was organizing his 30th high school reunion, he was browsing Facebook and friend requested a girl he thought was in his class but had never met. As we drove, I noticed a sample of a text she had sent, so I inquired about her identity. His face grew pale, and I could see the thumping of his heart in his chest. I followed all of their Facebook conversation, and I could see how they progressed from getting to know one another to him giving her his whole heart and telling her every detail of our marriage. He also gave him access to a blog I had written, which contained all of my innermost thoughts. They talked about it behind closed doors, making out, kissing, and telling her she was gorgeous, just like my wife. What a betrayal of our union. Emails, texts, and phone calls followed Facebook talks. They were simply pals, he said. My instinct warned me not to. After 4 years, my former lover expressed regret. We spoke for several months. He is undergoing a divorce. 3rd of March. While my husband was out of state for a job interview, he was sending me photos of the sunset and declaring his love for me. 4th of March. My spouse received 12 SMS from his STBX saying that I was talking to her STBX until 1 in the morning. I never got the opportunity to defend myself. My spouse accepted her account. We weren't, as our phone records attest to. March 5th. Husband stayed in our guest room and called her. March 20th. I was seeing our new grandson out of town. He leased a townhouse without saying anything to me. Following a 4-hour talk, on March 24th, he called a florist and arranged for flowers to be sent to her house. He went to meet our grandchild on March 25th, but he also spent extra time visiting a buddy who lived close to our son. He was phoning or texting her most of the time. It alarmed my kids and me to see how unpredictable his behavior was. While he was out, I opened his laptop and viewed the rental agreement as well as all of the phone records. Observed an alluring photo of her breasts protruding securely, on his desktop. This woman was detained a year ago on charges of resisting arrest and domestic abuse. We spoke on March 29th, and he confirmed to me that he was visiting her house and bringing the flowers. He moved out on March 30th, and since then, we haven't had a polite conversation. He began texting me with threatening messages. He switched off my cell phone. He requested that all of our financial retirement documents be sent to his workplace. He altered the passwords on all of our joint accounts. When I wasn't home, he dropped by and took pots and pans and other kitchenware, cushions, etc. When we first got together to chat, his actions genuinely alarmed me. I could go wherever I wanted, said the man who had never cursed at me in 27 years. Whom I want to be with, I can. It is up to me what I do. I hired a lawyer because I was afraid when he informed me that all I would have to live on would be $400 per month for my kid and me. I brought every piece of paper, invoice, and tax record I could find. When I told him that I had seen an attorney, he became so enraged that his veins burst and he screamed, "If you drown me financially, our 4 children will despise you to no ends." Then others started saying that I had destroyed or stolen his laptop. And I filed, and on April 8th at work, the first court date, he was served. Even though he didn't hire an attorney, he approached my lawyer, showed him the petition, and declared, "Everything in this is a lie." And after that I informed them we were going to do things my way. Not owned by you. My lawyer informed me that he believes my husband may be experiencing psychiatric issues. He sent a fact email to our 3 oldest children, detailing all my transgressions and apologizing for whatever he believed I had told them about him. He undervalued and demonized me in front of our children, downplaying what he had done and emphasizing what I had done. It has been months since my oldest and I spoke. My kids are all whirling around in shock. We didn't engage them in our marital troubles. We kept them to ourselves. He told our children falsehoods about him and my former partner in an affair being just friends. Friends don't email me pictures, talk on the phone for 23 hours and 45 minutes a month, buy a hidden cell phone so I can't monitor their conversation, or send me flowers, or stay the night at her house while her daughter, 20, is away from home. After receiving divorce papers, he went and purchased a brand new automobile 4 days later. His auto payment increased by $150. All of my credit cards were canceled by him. He transferred all of our mail to his new townhouse and completely depleted our joint checking account. My doctor depleted our health savings account card when I went to pay for the antidepressants and anxiety medications I needed. I've even been accused of contacting his landlord 30 times and of keying his car. I have no idea who he is anymore and feel like I'm going crazy. I've been unemployed for 26 years. Last year, I started my first part-time work. Our children are 15, 19, 26, and 23. He earns far more than 6 figures. I have since received his counter petition, in which he requests custody of our youngest child, stating that I'm not a good mommy. She doesn't want to live with him, despite the fact that 2 weeks prior to him really saying, "I have always been an excellent mother." He requests that I give him child support. Right now, I make roughly $8,000 each year. He wants me to settle all of our debt as a family. He demands that I sign a contract promising that I would never receive spousal support and that I pay all of his legal bills. Only 6 weeks into our divorce, and already he's requested a real estate agent, who just so happens to be trying to match him up with a lady in her office, to draft out a sales contract to short sale our house. Everything behind my back. He wants me to be homeless and have nothing. It's something I've never done before. Married far too early and put all of your financial confidence in him. And once the expenses are paid in full, I can see that we have an extra $2,000 per month. Furthermore, I'm not sure where it's been headed. He requested that I drop the lawyer's case. They are simpletons who only want to collect $10,000 from each of us and ask for mediation. On the day he received the financial paperwork papers and interrogatories, he inquired about this. What a monster he is. I am frightened, disoriented, and unable to eat or sleep. I am here, then. How am I able to help? My lawyer claims that since everything has an electronic fingerprint, he wants me to put my trust in him for both legal and financial matters. My limbs seem to have been severed. Living alone in my house, going to bed alone, and experiencing extreme panic every time I receive an email from him. For the sake of my sanity, I had to stop him from contacting me by phone or text. The sound of his texts and ringtones made me think I was about to have a mental breakdown. Has anyone else been married for this long and ended up on their own? My spouse is having an affair, which is twisted and strange, akin to a Lifetime movie, and it involves my STBX. How pathetic a way to maintain a relationship, and such retaliation. One built on secretly detesting each other's spouses. What should I do about my kids and the awful things he said to them about me? How can he defend talking and circulating false information about me? He has taken the victim role and placed all the blame on me. Mentally, I'm having trouble. In my opinion, based on the brief overview you've given, it appears that you both could benefit from assistance with setting boundaries and developing interpersonal skills. It seems unlikely that either of you will be able to find a fulfilling relationship unless you resolve the problems you've described. It does not necessarily follow that you should resolve things amicably, but rather on your own before attempting to mend or initiate a relationship. You can start attending marriage counseling as soon as you start to regain self-control. I hate to tell you this, but I believe your marriage is over, and perhaps that's a good thing. You both have a history of infidelity, look poisonous to one another, and I get the feeling that you are stuck in a never-ending cycle of marital failure. Divorce appears to be the beginning in this instance, but sometimes you just have to break the loop. The only other realistic choice is if you both agree to be really honest, accept your own baggage, and work with a counselor to resolve your concerns. And that's only the start. There are many more, and the marriage is doomed if neither of you is fully committed to it. I wish you success with your decision. Story 2. Earlier today, after questioning my husband about what was wrong and why he didn't want to strengthen our marriage, he started crying, claiming that he didn't want to have this talk since it would spell the end of our relationship. It seems that he no longer loves me and believes that he may not have loved me at all. He was simply enamored with the concept of love. This week, I'm going to make an effort to locate us a marriage counselor. Even though he doesn't think it will help, he has consented to go. My spouse and I have been married for around 14 months, having met more than 2 years ago. Until 2 months ago, we were both full-time students who attended some classes together. We also worked together most of the time. I traveled 4,000 miles to be with him, yet he didn't spend much time with friends. It goes without saying that I also didn't have many pals. We were alone, just hanging around. Even though money was quite tight, we managed. When his spot at military tech school opened up, he pleaded with me to accompany him so we could have a vacation while he attended classes. I agreed since I didn't want to be apart from him for 4 months, and together we traveled the United States for 3 weeks to visit my parents and his kid. After arriving at the hotel, we fell very ill and remained that way for the next 2 weeks. He made friends in his courses and began hanging out with them after school after a few weeks here. He had never really had many buddies that he saw frequently up north, so I didn't mind. After being constantly aloof from me, he started working out with them 4 hours after class 1 week ago in an effort to get in shape for me. I wanted to attempt a book called His Needs, Her Needs with him to strengthen our marriage, but I couldn't get him interested in it during the first part of the week. I repeatedly asked him earlier today why he wasn't wanting to work on our relationship and what was bothering him. 5 minutes in, he broke down in tears, saying that if he continued, our relationship would come to an end. To make things easier on me, he also wanted to wait to inform me he wanted a divorce until after we had both returned to his home state. He stated he wasn't in love with me and that he wasn't sure if he ever was or if he was simply after the romance. He said that being out with friends down here revealed to him that he wasn't the appropriate person for me, not that our marriage was inherently flawed. He claimed that all he wants is to go out with his pals by himself and return each evening to a deserted spot. He claimed that despite his best efforts over the past few months to make me happy, they are no longer able to envision me in their future. He doesn't want to get married, yet he still cares about me. He claimed to have completed the improvement stage and was ready to go on. He internalizes everything all the time, so I asked him how he thought he could ever hope to work on a marriage involving two people without telling me and working on it jointly. He also told me that he just wanted it to be over with and that it didn't matter right now. This was the man who cried at the airport when bidding me farewell for the first time when we initially started dating. What has transpired between us is beyond me. Although I know that our marriage wasn't always easy and that we didn't have a lot of money to go out and enjoy ourselves, I still believe that we were a good match. Though he doesn't think either of those things will help, he has consented to attempt reading the book I wanted to read and accompany me to marriage counseling. All he wants is to be by himself. Additionally, he claims that the book will be useless because he doesn't want anything from me or to make our marriage the greatest it has ever been. All he wants is to be free. I also proposed this separation of sorts for him for next week. He's already moved into one of our 2 bedrooms, and I've instructed him to go do whatever he wants as long as we don't cross paths. Additionally, he can see his feelings after a week. However, he claimed that it wouldn't help because he already knew that's what he wanted. We're returning north in 2 weeks as his classes are over. At that point, I have to make the decision of whether or not to continue trying to force a marriage to work with someone who doesn't believe it will or doesn't want it to work. I know it will end forever if I walk out. Remaining when all he wants to do is walk out by himself is embarrassing. However, I can't help but feel that once I leave, it's done and I'll never know what might have occurred if I had stayed a little bit longer. In conclusion, even though I feel like it's already over, I would appreciate any suggestions. Although there have been ups and downs in our marriage, up until this past week, he appeared content. Over the past week, I've questioned him several times whether there is someone else. The fact that he hasn't shown any interest in bonding is really unusual for him. The only explanation that made sense was that he was using amino acids for his workouts and had recently bought tablets since they were causing him constant nausea. He's now at a situation where all the men are really fit and he has people to work out with, so that's why I believed it. Additionally, when he's at the gym, he texts me pictures. However, it does seem strange. To be honest, I have lost any sense of what to believe. However, he is a previous at this tech school, and any of the girls he has named are not priors. Therefore, he is not permitted to hang out with them after class. He might therefore be in serious trouble if he has done or has done anything more. Nonetheless, the younger males are really envious of the older ones. Given that he finally has money to squander and a few pals to go out with, it would be simple to believe that this is all simply an ego trip. But believe me, I get how strange it sounds. Ever since he informed me earlier today that he wanted to end things, I've been in disbelief. I'm not entirely certain with whom he is spending time with following class, but over the first several days, he would email me pictures of them shooting hoops or going to the gym. So I never gave it any thought until now. I believe he will return to reality once we reach the north. Ironically, he has already admitted to me that he dislikes being single. Since he is 26 and I am 28, I figure that if he isn't already emotionally invested in someone by the time I leave, he will be soon. You get the idea. Unfortunately, even if he was talking to someone, I wouldn't know about it because he works in a very high-level industry, making it quite difficult to figure out. He is shrewd enough to hide and erase anything. I'll attempt to check his phone bill, but he has one of those pay-per-month plans that doesn't bind you to a provider, which I presume will make data access more difficult. We have a scheduled appointment for marriage counseling later this week. However, it appears that he has already left the marriage and has no desire to return. I therefore have low hopes. He's questioned me about what I would do if the therapist told me it was over, or requests that he try something different or make adjustments. He stated that he doesn't want to do both of them. We've talked to a brick wall the few times we've spoken tonight. I just want to be alone right now, and I don't know, exactly like Hancho described. When the person you're with decides one day that they no longer care about your marriage, it's awful. I sincerely hope that the other couples who may be divorcing are more fortunate than I am with their partners. Even if it sounds like he's cheating, I don't think it would be worth my emotional health to stay and try to figure out what's going on or why this is actually occurring. In the end, I would have simply given a man who is obviously unworthy of my time more attention in order to learn whether or not he is cheating. Since that awful day, I've stopped asking him how it happened, what we could do to make things better, and how to get back to our previous state. We're attempting to think of that one ideal suggestion that would turn everything around. To understand that taking care of myself is the only thing I can do right now. I've tried to keep a safe distance from him, but when we do need to talk, I still act politely toward him. I began going out on my own every night for food and amusement after he gets back from his friend's pickup of the shared car down here. Even though it's difficult, I know that lounging about in our resort in this beach town will just make things worse, so I might as well make some progress while I'm still here. I'll try everything to have fun, which has caused him to inquire about my day and my activities since I usually return after him, and seem a little irritated that I don't seem to be interested in him anymore, his day, or wanting to be with him. He texts me to check in on me and asks how I'm doing if I opt to go to the movies instead of going to dinner. It appears that he still wants to be more of a friend than a partner, which is utterly unacceptable and probably never will be. Fortunately, I was able to schedule a counseling session for 2 days following the events. Although I knew going in that nothing would change, I had the impression that being there would clarify the situation and explain why everything had changed so quickly. However, this was not the case. Things he repeatedly told me on our first day together, like he just wanted to be alone. We can go to counseling, but I won't change anything if they ask me to because I just want to be single or this is just who I am. I don't know why you can't understand that or that I don't love you like I should, and I'm not sure if I ever did or if I was just in love with being in love. He all denied voicing them. I'm emotionally closed off and don't want to share my feelings. If you don't like it, that's just another reason to not be together. The bold parts, anyway, that he feels compelled to lie in front of a woman who is there to support him and whom he will never see again is really upsetting. However, it further reinforced for me the fact that this is his current identity. Embarrassment over what he said or how suddenly it happened is one thing. He thinks it's acceptable to treat me like this, and even though it's difficult for me to see it at the moment, I am aware that I am worthy of better. His pals down here are the only individuals he has spoken to about the divorce thus far, and I know that the significant shift in him that I observed around me started when he initially discussed our relationship with one of his buddies. It seems strange to me that he has no desire to discuss our divorce with any member of his family. However, there's no forcing him to do anything right now. We'll be returning to his hometown in roughly 3 weeks, so I'll need to pack up the stuff I had kept at his parents'. If, after a month, I'm the one to notify them that he wants a divorce, that will be fascinating, especially if I don't bring him along that day. However, it appears that's starting to happen. After our brief conversation last night, he asked whether I would consent to an uncontested divorce. I informed him that I would sign the paperwork in either case, provided he fulfills all of his financial obligations, but only after everything is finished. Any promises he couldn't keep by the time I left, he intended to include as a simple clause in the divorce decree. However, I informed him that I would only sign after everything was finished. Given that it appears he wants to proceed with this quickly, this is how I figure I'll have greater luck getting him to honor his promises. Another idea I had was to have him draft the documents outlining what has to be done and have him sign them, but not to sign until he had actually done those things. In any case, I would have a written copy of it. I do not want to go back and see him again after I'm gone, so I'll have to investigate state laws to see whether I may sign them after departing. Please let me know if you have any experience with any of these. It seems strange that we went from being married to being married and splitting the money for a divorce in just 4 days. However, there's not much to hold on to at this point, so I don't see the sense in going into more detail. Right now, all I'm trying to do is make sure I obtain what I should have by the beginning of May. Everyone in my family is terrified that after we return north, he'll have second thoughts and ask me to stay and continue working on it, and that I will happily oblige. I can, however, view the marriage quite logically, even though I occasionally see it through highly emotional lenses. Even if he changes his mind, I should go right now if he found it so easy to harm me. Because he might just as well do it again in 3, 5, 10, or 20 years, and I would have wasted more time on someone who has proven to me that they are incapable of committing to a marriage for the long haul. Furthermore, my family, whom I have always thought to be a fair arbiter of moral character, now either despise him, want to hurt him physically if he ever shows up at my house, or both. They have been my pillar of support throughout these first few wild days, telling me when to say no, that person is an immature fool, and encouraging me to move past it. Even though this is an absurd and horrible circumstance, you are not to blame. You shouldn't feel bad about yourself or stupid for believing in him, even if he wants to call it quits right away. You'll meet someone greater than him, someone who is better than he ever was or will be, and who won't leave on a whim. I feel really fortunate to have them here to support me during this difficult time, as I can't imagine not having them there to do so. I know that's not always the case. It's been difficult since the first day, but the first day that followed was the most significant day I've had thus far. Additionally, I make a daily schedule so that I don't just sit around feeling down. It's something I look forward to every day that is solely focused on me and has nothing to do with our divorce. I suppose the major message I'm attempting to convey is to anyone else who may be reading this and experiencing a similar situation. I knew I was going to be sad, so I didn't concentrate on trying not to be sad. Even though I was upset, I concentrated on the things I knew would make me happy, and on things that didn't seem like they belonged to me, like going to the gym or doing my nails. That, after I was done, I knew would make me feel valuable. I have 4 options to consider. First, have the divorce decree signed by him and carry it with me the next time I travel to another state, signing it just after he's finished what he couldn't afford to by the time I leave. I would need to investigate how it functioned. whether signing it out of state is even feasible, and how to return it to them. I don't want to mail it to him or his relatives. I'll have to check whether there's another option. 2. Obtain his signature on the divorce decree and remain there until he fulfills all of the financial obligations stated in it. 3. Before I leave the state, I will sign it, get it notarized, and give it in. 4. Together, sign, have it notarized, and turn it in. Then continue there until he has fulfilled all of his financial commitments. I don't really care to stay outside longer than I have to when it comes to them all. But I'm not sure what steps I could take while I'm out of state to force him to fulfill his financial obligations so far away. Does this always require a lawyer, even if I were closer? We don't have a lot of money to begin with, therefore I'd like to avoid paying any additional expenses in addition to creating the divorce documents. In addition, I need to make sure that the divorce documentation accounts for the possibility of his changing his mind. I hope that one individual, acting alone, cannot halt a divorce case once they have signed. 2 nights ago, he asked me if I would be open to an uncontested divorce and said he would cover the cost of having them drafted. I apologize if this assertion is true, albeit I'm not suggesting it will. Then maybe he'll cover the cost of their getting done. I should start urging him to schedule a meeting with the attorney. I don't think he did this. In this manner, we can conclude it as soon as we return, in case he decides to change his mind. Yes, I'm not very knowledgeable about divorce. I am aware that once it is in the system, it takes 90 days to process, and if we both agree, I don't think we have to do anything. But I should be sure. Since this is my first divorce, I'm not sure what to anticipate, but I figure it's not a good idea to stay there until we do. I reasoned that drawing up the paperwork, getting his signature, and delaying doing it myself would take care of both issues. Forcing him to move quickly so it could process, and preparing it in writing so I could submit it if necessary. I simply don't know enough about the procedure, and I figured that if I don't know what I'm doing, it may go very wrong. I still need to know more. Since the beginning of this, there is unquestionably something wrong with him. After spending the weekend at the beach with his pals, he returned early, and he feels free to get a divorce, even though he only told me about it 6 days ago. Take off his shirt to show me his comical sunburn from forgetting to apply lotion to his back at the beach, and then, despite everything else he's done, come out of his bathroom after taking a shower wearing only a towel and roam about our home in search of clothes. I suppose the thing that irritates me the most, along with probably everyone else who has experienced this, is the way he acts as though we aren't getting married right now. I should still be very concerned about what's happening with him because we are friends. I refuse to do so, even when I find myself tempted to. I promise not to do that again. However, I'm feeling great right now. Right now, the only thing bringing me down is the fact that he spoiled my first lovely weekend spent by myself without him. I'm about to get into the angry stage. I can tell that my STBX is already looking for a new acquaintance or casual encounter based on the way he has been phrasing his remarks about not knowing how to approach ladies at bars or other activities. Additionally, he has been replying to posts on Reddit personals from people who are seeking to get together or form a threesome. After going to the movies by myself on Thursday of last week, I was invited to dinner. However, I declined because it was becoming late and I wasn't prepared for that kind of thing. He asked me what I did the following day, so I told him about the movies. I was invited to supper, but I declined. Not that I said that it was a guy. I go out and do something every evening to get away, so he's now been asking me how many dates I've had. Mostly supper and movies. I just keep telling him no dates, even though I've been handling everything by myself. Furthermore, he is often making remarks about how much easier it is for women than for men to ask women out. Is he really expecting me to feel sorry for him since he doesn't know how to approach other women? He may have discovered from the group he was hanging out with last weekend that while one of the girls thought he was cute, she spent the entire evening making out with someone else. True Victor over there. I initially assumed he was asking because it made him feel better to think I was doing okay. However, I believe that right now he perceives it as a competition or as if I'm being asked out. He had to make an effort to be seen. I don't know if this is how he feels about getting asked out, or if it was always going to happen. Even if it appears quick, the fact that he's still acting in this manner 6 days after telling me he wanted a divorce probably says something about the kind of guy he is. I regret even bringing up the fact that I was asked out to dinner. However, he asked, and I didn't really do it. When I go to the movies, I have no control over what other people do, therefore I shouldn't have inquired if he wasn't genuinely interested in knowing. I don't ask him anything, but I still occasionally hear about it. I made an effort to keep my nightly activities from being disclosed to him in broad terms. Indeed, he was furious. But I've just made the decision to let him know what I'm doing generally because we're going to be driving together for 40 hours the following week and I want our relationship to remain cordial. Yes, I know I shouldn't have to, but I'd prefer to keep things somewhat cordial until the paperwork is signed and I depart. Aside from all of that, I just get the impression that he's picking faults with me on trivial matters. Why I didn't text him back right away. I informed him that because my phone was mute, I didn't understand. An argument then broke out since I was using his car and I wasn't even there to help him in case of an emergency. He didn't really need anything, and he didn't really have an emergency. He felt that I was ignoring him, so all he wanted to do was whine, which he demanded an apology for, along with the fact that we hadn't filled up the car we'd been driving together all week. I'm starting to realize this, so I've stopped a couple debates that we're building this week by using the phrases "I don't want to argue right now," that the marriage simply doesn't matter to me anymore. I want it to be gone because I know it can't be preserved, particularly after learning that he was making an effort to socialize. It does indeed cut, but after that all that's left is a developing numbness, indifference, and hatred. I had my first session of individual counseling. Aside from that, his main concern was supporting me both materially and mentally. The focus was primarily on me and my desire to move on. Finding out what I desired now and in the future was one of the topics. Understanding who I was, putting my happiness first, not holding myself responsible for the split, and realizing that if I made all the necessary changes to my personality, I could definitely save the marriage. But since I wouldn't be happy if I did, I shouldn't want to. Additionally, he prepared me for the chance that my STBXH would ask to be taken back before I left in the coming weeks and what my attitude would be in response. I was ready for it. I'm getting divorce papers this week after speaking with a lawyer. I have been making a list of the insurance and financial conditions I would like to have included when everything is drafted. That's good because I already have the money from him to cover the entire cost. He's starting to tell a few more people, and things are slowly starting to come together. I still don't think he's spoken to his family, but it may be because friends texted both of us and he told them, or because he needs to find out from his ex-wife what lawyer he employed. Any friends we've had together, even the closer ones he told about the divorce, tell me they don't know why he's doing this or what he's doing. It appears like he just followed his wild instinct. I haven't bothered to inform him of the popular perception of his behavior. I'm doing okay overall, and I'm excited for things to be finished and my trip back to my hometown. I'm also making a mental inventory of qualities in a guy that I will never, ever want. One more update. I spoke with my STBXH about the divorce terms a few days ago. I'm not asking for anything crazy, to be honest, but he spotted faults with it. We then got into the discussion of why some items even had to be mentioned in the divorce decree. I heard numerous justifications for not having to list them, such as the fact that it wasn't a gift if it was noted on the paperwork and that it made him feel obligated to do it, even if he couldn't afford it, or that he had to do it by a specific deadline. Then, if I didn't trust him to do it, he stated he didn't want to do it at all. Nevertheless, he declined my request for my rings back after agreeing to what was stated. Then, despite my assurance that I had nothing he desired, he tried to ask me what I was going to give him. I informed him that he would get the divorce he desired, seemingly consenting to a divorce, and an uncontested one at that, in a county where we don't have to show up together for court dates or go through marital therapy in order to process anything, is insufficient in his opinion. He wanted to help me move on, which is the only reason I even consented to work with him in an uncontested divorce, and he was the one who came up with most of the conditions. When all was said and done, he cautioned me not to expect people to do this much for me in the future, as if consenting to sign the documents outlining everything he had promised to do all along would be some kind of enormous favor to me. Putting that talk behind us, I asked him the next day when he plans to return from his weekend getaway with the men. In essence, I was curious if he would be staying the night. I enjoy organizing my schedule to coincide with his stays at the resort. I have other options. I simply told him that it was best for both of us to have our space right now, as he was still struggling to understand. He then wonders why I'm traveling back to my hometown with him and why I don't just leave right away if I don't want to hang out. I therefore remind myself of the extensive list of tasks I still have to complete. After a few minutes, I tell him I want to keep the rest of our time together cordial and ask him again whether he'll be back or if he's spending the night out of town. At that point, he storms off, swearing. Between cursing at me and begging me to shut up, he eventually tells me that he's not staying the night. Thus, I do. 20 minutes later, after I've gone to fetch packing boxes, I receive a message from him inquiring as to if I'm attempting to bring a guy back to the resort. Is that the reason I want to go outside so much during the day? I simply say no. The man who claimed that he wasn't bothered by me hanging out with other people is suddenly terrified that I'm out looking for men to entice back to our apartment while he's not around. I wanted to know when he'll return from his trip with the guys out of town because that's the reason I'm constantly out. And that was all less than 2 weeks after he filed for divorce. It seems like I'm working with a young child. It's as if his desire for a divorce stemmed only from his desire to go out and pick up ladies with his buddies, or when he imagined that I would spend my entire day sobbing in my chamber, pining away for him. And now, the actual situation differs slightly from his expectations. I always knew this would come to pass, but he just makes everything seem so tragic when I ask him even the tiniest inquiry. These past 2 weeks, I've truly seen a different side of him. He's probably said more hurtful things to me today than we have discussed in the prior 3 years put together. I simply keep reminding myself that in less than 3 weeks, I'll be free of him for good and won't turn around. One more update. One of my buddies calls me several times last night as I'm laughing on the phone in my room, and he asks me questions. The last time he appears at the door, he does it with a solemn and distressed appearance. He wants to sit on his bed in his room and converse. When I walk in, he begins talking about how he believes the amino acids are what are causing his emotion and mood to change, and that he's been reflecting about this for some time, and that he sincerely apologizes for the way he treated me and managed the entire thing. After he's done speaking, he just sits there and watches me to see how I'll respond. What the devil do I say to this man in return at this point? Then it dawns on me, what am I really hoping to get out of this conversation, and what am I really wanting? After a short while, I finally decide, all right, and since you're free right now, is it possible for you to sign the divorce papers right away? I understand that I'm not interested in getting into a heated debate with him about how I've been harmed, how cruel a person he's been at times, or how random individuals have shown me more kindness in a short period of time than he could have over the entire road trip. What a monster he's been. And although a part of me likes to believe that I'm beyond all of this petty, nasty, juvenile things that he can instantly go back to doing, I also came to the realization that I don't give a damn anymore. Beyond what the divorce papers indicate he'll do, I don't want anything from him, and I most definitely don't want to assist him in moving over his guilt about how he's treated me. Even though it was a very painful moment to bring up signing the paperwork, I'm guessing that by not saying it aloud, it also made it clear to him how I really feel about him right now. Hopefully, this will stop him from bringing up the subject of regret and sadness in the future, at least until I pass away. Indeed, I will. The divorce papers were signed by him. In fact, without even skimming the 4 documents' contents. Either he's incredibly gullible, very trusting, or my plea totally caught him off guard. After I left, he informed me 3 months later he tried to find out why he wanted to leave me by going to military counseling. He believed himself to be bipolar, and they were looking into it. They would have expelled him from the service if he had been. But none of it materialized, so I'm not sure what conclusion he reached on that. Apart from that, he gained a lot of knowledge from counseling, which assisted him in making decisions regarding me. Not that he made them all by himself. He asked me if I wanted to try to work on our relationship once again around a month and a half ago. He experiences things every day that make him think of me, and it breaks his heart on the inside. And that he was prepared to live out the rest of his days expressing regret for his errors. He mentioned he had been anticipating my revisit to bring it up, since I had requested a divorce from him numerous times in the initial days of his request, and that before I was totally gone from his life, he needed to ask me. Since he had initially expressed such a strong desire for a divorce, I essentially merely replied, given that the paperwork has already been signed and is in the processing stage, I believe we should see it through to the end. He said he didn't want to let the opportunity to be with me pass, and if I had any desire for the same go by and him missing that chance before it was too late, which he said was probably when he falsely stated that he didn't love me anymore. He then apologized that he hurt me so badly that I've started to hate him, and that he couldn't stress how wrong he was in the end, but he completely understands that I want nothing to do with him. Regarding my hatred of him or any other emotional assumptions he's drawn since I left, I never corrected him. I have no idea why, but I'm starting to feel this way again. I could go on and on about how awful he is as a person and how foolish it is of me to still feel this way. Everything he has caused me to go through is incomprehensible. The only thing that has changed recently is that last week, he didn't immediately reply to my email. Exactly 1 week after I wrote him, he responded, so I'm not sure if it was intentional on his part to irritate me. Even the 5-minute time difference is apparent. After writing to him for a few days, maybe I'd grown accustomed to hearing from him in 10 minutes or less. When I last wrote to him, it was about the fact that our divorce paperwork hadn't been finalized, even though I had assumed it would, since he was keeping me on his health insurance until our divorce was official. Either he misunderstood my letter and thought it was already final, or he was just trying to get a reaction from me. I'm attempting to be really explicit with him these days. I need to get over this relapse and stop missing him, so it's helpful to know that he wrote back saying it's okay about the divorce and that he really doesn't care that much anymore. Of course, this wasn't great news to hear at the time. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I'm not sure if I miss him or if it's just the memory of him that I miss. I look back on our entire time together and don't really see anything that I should have been missing. Even while I do miss the real guy, the rational part of me understands that I should never try to be with this man ever again. After everything he's made me go through, he genuinely asks me via email whether I still want to work on our relationship. Who does that, after dropping hints about it for months, if it's really that important to someone? He didn't even give me a call to discuss it. Or, I dunno, we got married, come flying in here and knock on my door pleading to come back. I'm not sure why I'm holding on to my answer from a month and a half ago when he asked if I wanted to work on it. Perhaps as a result of my lack of honesty with him at the time about how I truly felt. However, I suppose I don't want to put my sentiments in the hands of someone who might as well have wished me gone at any time. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have replied to him via email at all. I was doing it to get him to comply with our divorce's terms, and I still feel as though I would have felt differently if I hadn't. He would never have finished. Final update, about a year later. I don't have much free time because I work full-time and attend college. I also occasionally lose myself in extended periods of time and forget about my divorce and my ex. Positively, within less than a year of receiving my degree, I was able to secure employment in my field. I practically enjoy coming to work since this facility is so amazing. In addition, I'm already building experience for my CV in preparation for graduation. Thus, congratulations. Occasionally, though, all that has transpired can suddenly ruin an otherwise wonderful day for me. I'm not sure if it's because of how quickly everything happened or because I didn't actually reprimand him at all during the whole thing, or simply thinking back to how our relationship started and wondering how on earth it ended that way. I enjoy reading the notes I wrote to friends and family during what I've called my month to hell and back at those times. There's nothing that will bring you back to earth like reading what you wrote about someone who broke your heart and continued to treat you like a second-class citizen for a month. In any case, it has been roughly 2 months since I last heard from him. As soon as he found I had blocked him on some social media, he started writing me and asking me personal questions. He even acknowledged being shady and stalkerish. In my previous email, I had finally accepted his offer to send me items he had discovered that I owned. He had inquired whether I would like him to mail them. I haven't heard from him at all since then. I've thought about emailing him about it again, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. Now that I think about it, I think he's either finally finished talking or is realizing that I desire something that I unintentionally left behind and can't get back. Or he understands that I won't need to talk to him anymore once I've achieved everything I want. Yes, he did tell me that final precise line. Who knows, then? However, it has been approximately 5 months since my formal divorce. At least for today, it seems like I should be far over how I am feeling at this time. However, I suppose there isn't a formal schedule. For extended periods, I've felt amazing and haven't needed to think about the past. I've flirted a little bit, but ultimately I discover that I would rather spend my dwindling spare time being alone and not worrying about anyone else. But that's where I am at the moment. I wish I could claim that place is just a bad memory that I ignore when I go on rainbows, and that I'm past it. I simply haven't arrived yet. I hope that everyone else getting over being caught off guard by a divorce is doing better. My comment: I hope this helps some of the viewers understand the wife's current viewpoint.